people who thinks Trump has been smearing the Somalis unfairly. Just want to give you some color on it. Here's Tot 6.
In this segment, Terry Moran sharply criticizes former President Trump's comments about Somali-Americans, and Michael Knowles responds with a very different interpretation of the American history and immigration. This exchange escalates quickly, and the contrast in viewpoints says a lot about how polarized this debate has become.
First, it's a stupid thing to say. There are about 200,000 Somali-Americans, refugees, immigrants, and American-born kids, too. And they came here because they believe that America keeps her promise, that this land is big enough and brave enough to offer safety and dignity and upward mobility to hard workers and big dreamers from around the world. Somali Americans are working hard. They're starting businesses, paying taxes, raising families. Second, presidents should not talk like that. No decent person should call any other human being garbage. But Trump does it. Not just because he is that kind of man, but for political reasons. He wants to drag people down to his level, give them permission to become the worst version of themselves, and join him in remaking our country in his image.
Okay, Terry, thanks a lot. We appreciate that. He thinks President Trump is out of line and is very angry about it. Michael? Thoughts?
Listen, Terry, Ilhan Omar is not going to marry you, bro, because she married her bro. So she's not going to marry you. It's not going to happen. Speaking of garbage, we can say about arguments that if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. If you're going to have garbage for your premises, you're going to have some garbage conclusions. And his premises are just totally off. He says that Somalis are hardworking. They're not. They're just not. I'm not saying there isn't a Somali who is a hard worker, but as a group, they're not hardworking. He says that they pay their taxes. They don't really. They're not net contributors to the government in any way. They're largely on welfare. The vast majority of them in these American enclaves are in poverty, and they just don't contribute.
All right, so Michael Knowles now goes far beyond disagreeing with Terry's take. He's challenging the entire premise. Whether the viewers agree or disagree, this is where the conversation shifts from emotional framing into a claim about data and outcomes. That pivot is important because it changes the tone of the debate.
And now there's been this massive scandal where they were actually defrauding the government. So no, none of that is true. But then the broader premise on America is also wrong. It says they've come here because they believe that America is going to live up to the promise that if you're a hard worker from anywhere in the world, you can come here. That's not the promise. That's never been the promise. I don't know where you got that idea that America said, we don't have borders, everyone from around the world should come here. That isn't true. The country was founded a long, long time ago. It was founded by some people on the Mayflower, which is a great cigar company, by the way. And they came here in 1620. They came to Jamestown actually a little earlier than that. And they said that some people can come here. But you got to believe certain things. You got to have certain disciplines. You got to kind of fit in a little bit. And then when we had the American Revolution,
they actually said that. Just to be clear, they actually said that exact thing. They worried about people who would not assimilate being let in. They did not want that. Keep going.
This is why we had basically no Muslims in America until recent decades.
This is where Knowles shifts from reacting to Terry's critique into a broader historical argument. He starts tying immigration patterns to the founding era, assimilation, and national identity, moving the conversation away from the original clip into a much bigger debate.
And this knock on Islam even generally. It's just not how the country worked. I mean, it's just a fact.
They don't want us either.
Right. This is just a fact of history. Okay, the only American engagement with Islam before recent decades was really in the Barbary Wars when we were making war on them because the Muslims kept imprisoning and enslaving our sailors. So fast forward to the American Revolution. In the decades after the American Revolution, we severely restricted immigration. Then you move into the middle of the 19th century. We opened up immigration a little bit, but it was still relatively restrictive and assimilation was difficult. Now it is true, by the end of the 19th century into the early 20th century, we loosened up immigration considerably and it caused a ton of problems. So many problems that in the 1920s, we greatly restricted immigration again. And that was the status quo until the 1960s when the Democrats opened the floodgates. And in that even more recent years, then the Democrats that's opened up illegal immigration and imported millions and millions of people. So even the claim that America is a nation of immigrants, that's not true. And you'll notice that whenever you ask for evidence on this, they don't point to the Constitution, they don't point to the Naturalization Acts, they don't point to any actual parts of American history. They point to this stupid poem on the base of the Statue of Liberty written by a socialist that says, "Give us your poor huddled masses." That does not have the weight of federal law, first of all. Like, dumb socialist poems are not the Constitution. And two, that doesn't even actually describe the American tradition on immigration. We've been by far the most generous nation in the history of the world when it comes to immigration. But there are limits, and I think history and the American tradition should be able to weigh in on it more than the bloviations of Terry or whoever that guy was.
I think less about the poem by the socialist and more about that brilliant sage, Homer Simpson, who in one of the episodes held up a sign, Norma Ray style, that read, "Go home, the country's full." That's really where we are today. As all matters, Homer Simpson has solved it.
Brevity is
Terry
the soul
Moran,
of wit, as the
who thinks,
bard tells us.
That's right. So he thinks that Trump is hateful. I mean, he just got booted from ABC for pretending to be objective when he's not. It was shortly after he posted this tweet about Stephen Miller in June. The thing about Stephen Miller is not that he's the brains behind Trumpism, though he is, but that's not what's interesting about him. It's not his brains, it's bile. He's a man who's richly endowed with the capacity for hatred, a world-class hater. You can see this just by looking at him, because you can see that his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate. This is an objective news reporter, allegedly. Trump is a world-class hater, but his hatred is only a means to an end. And that end is his own glorification. That is his spiritual nourishment. So no surprise he's at it again, trying to rip on these people. Now, you made some interesting points about immigration and what the founders envisioned. It's gone a different way, which is not only being acknowledged by people like you and me, two MKs, but by Wajahat Ali, who our audience may remember as being one of the three on that infamous Don Lemon clip.
If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe. I post clean, unbiased commentary clips every week, always focused on clarity over conflict. Thank you for watching.